Yokohama is a fun place to hang out with friends. Big parks, plenty of all-you-can-eat Chinese restaurants, and lots of amusing shops. I was exactly doing that on the day this happened, hanging out with friends. You know how the pandemic reduced everybody's social circle? Mine reduced drastically, but this particular friend group of 4 people survived, mostly on daily memes, inside jokes, and I'd like to believe unspoken trust. Now, this is solely based on my experience, but I find that my friendships with Filipinos tend to start out strong. Like, you immediately click and then hang out a lot, and then you make this big romantic promises like, I'll be your friend until the end of time. But sadly, these friendships don't really stand the test of time. I'm not saying all, but many of mine did not survive long before the pandemic, and they didn't just fade out or fizzle out. They crashed and burned. My friendships with Japanese people, though, for many of them, I was the one who took the initiative and approached the person and invited them to hang out. Mostly, I was relying on my radar here, kind of like, you seem kind of weird, maybe we'd get along. It's been years since these tiny friendships were made, and maybe precisely because there weren't any big dramatic moments and foolish promises that I find that these are a little bit more stable. Mostly we just hang out whenever we feel like it and talk about and make fun of the most random things. Sometimes it's these tiny moments that eventually form a strong bond, and while there's no big declaration of undying loyalty, there's undeniable trust there. So I was hanging out with this particular group of friends, and there's 4 of us, and we just ate this big meal at a Chinese restaurant, and we were just walking along the streets of Yokohama Chinatown when one of us entered this clothing shop. It's a small boutique with a collection of clothes that I would describe as something that caters to mostly tourists or people with really flashy tastes. And then 2 of us got to checking out the skajan. And if you're not familiar to what a skajan is, it's these embroidered satin baseball jackets, kind of like what a person in a gang would wear. It's kind of really funny at first because it's something that I would normally not see my friends wearing. But I realized that this excitement was kind of turning into a thing, and the idea floated out there that maybe it would be fun if we all wore matching jackets. On a regular day where I have access to online shopping, this would sound like a great idea. I'd totally be on board. But we were in a shop that sold straight sizes, and I'm a big girl. Immediately, I felt cold sweat running and my anxiety shooting up. My head was spinning and my panic thoughts were running amok in all directions, saying things like, well, shit, nothing will probably fit me in here, and that would be so embarrassing. What should I do? What should I say? If I try one on, it doesn't fit, that would be so embarrassing. If I have to get a size bigger than everybody else's, that would be so embarrassing. Oh my God, I just want to disappear. It's amazing how you could be so carefree 1 second and then suddenly choke on anxiety the next. Like, one of the boys eventually handed me a jacket, and I think my face got all serious as I said no and shook my head. And I don't really know how he took it at that time, but really, I was just dying in shame inside. In my head, I was too big. I was taking up too much space, and I was so afraid that they'd realize just how big I was, as if all my worth as a person at that moment was pinned entirely on my size. But as I watched my friends try on the jackets, something in me shifted. Maybe it was FOMO, maybe it was my anxiety finally settling down, but I got to thinking, what exactly was it that I was afraid of? That they'd realize how big I am? They've been with me for years, they already know my size. That they'd react badly if I don't fit the jacket? That's kind of discrediting them for the good friends that they are. After all, haven't I been surviving the pandemic with these exact people? I've been with them through ups and downs, and yet here I am, so afraid to be vulnerable. I have this opportunity to share this fun moment with my friends, and yet I'm letting anxiety win over me. At this very moment, what was in my way wasn't even my size. It's just my irrational fear. So I took a deep breath, grabbed one jacket, and tried it on. And guess what? Not only did it fit, I fucking rocked it. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations that prey on our worst fears. Moments like this can feel so overwhelming that we feel like we're gasping for air, trying not to drown in our own anxiety. But if we take a deep breath take a step back and try to take in the situation from a slightly different perspective, we'll find that our worst fears aren't so bad after all, especially if we're with people we trust, and especially if you trust yourself. And that's my fat story for today. I'll see you in the next video.